Joined now by John Stremlau, honorary professor in international relations at Wits University. Prof, thank you so much for your time. Just how much trouble is South Africa in?
It's impossible to know right now, but it is certainly a serious moment, and Ambassador Brigidi would not have been so unequivocal if he didn't have confidence in the intelligence. And I realize that South Africans with a long memory will recall that President Thabo Mbeki warned about the invasion of of Iraq in 2003 and said there were no evidence of weapons of mass destruction. And in fact, George Tenet and the CIA director, who famously said it was a slam dunk, was wrong. And there wasn't Mbeki was very critical then of the U.S. invasion, and I'm amazed at how little criticism comes from the ANC now when there's a blatant transgression against a sovereign neighbor. Its territorial integrity has been violated consequently from treaties and the like. And Brigidi clearly has intelligence that Bill Burns, the head of the CIA, who I also know personally and I have the highest regard for, would not have released this if he didn't have the confidence that their intelligence has brought forth about what the Lady R was doing back in December in Simonstown base. So it is a serious moment, the consequences of which we just don't know. It's too early to tell. And yet, clearly, Reuben Brigidi was operating on instructions from Washington. He has very great confidence in, and it's bittersweet because he, as he said in his Times article several weeks ago, he believes very much in U.S. South African cooperation, and he was politicized by Nelson Mandela and the anti-apartheid movement, and he regrets that the ANC has taken the position it has taken.
What do you make of the South African president's response in Parliament this afternoon? Yes, he was asked a question that wasn't scripted as part of the parliamentary sequence, but his response seemed somewhat flat-footed. He said, we were looking into it. Surely a president would have got wind of this sort of intelligence and this sort of concern from America and have been better prepared.
Well, one would have thought, and I don't really know, I don't want to second guess President Ramaphosa. On the other hand, his close advisor and very distinguished Sydney Mufamadi was in Washington along with Ambassador Brigidi and just a few days ago, and trying to reassure Washington that South Africa still wanted a full partnership. And I hesitate, I don't hesitate to recall that when President Mbeki was so concerned about the invasion of Iraq, it didn't stop PEPFAR going forward, and very importantly for the well-being of South Africans in HIV/AIDS. And similarly, the AGOA is up for renewal in 2025, and that's a long way off. But it is a serious moment, and what Reuben Brigidi is saying is South Africa is a sovereign nation, but choices have consequences, and so is the Americans a sovereign nation. But it's not Donald Trump, and it is Joe Biden.
Yeah. Let's actually take a listen to that clip of President Ramaphosa in Parliament this afternoon when he was asked about this very serious issue. Let's play that clip now.
We are all aware of the news that we all became aware of the Lady R, and that whole matter, Honorable Steenhuisen, is being looked into. It's being, no, it isn't. It's being looked into, and whilst the process continues, I want you to allow that process to continue to reach its fruition. I know that you are so keen You are so keen and you are so interested in knowing exactly what happened. The matter, yes, the matter is being looked into, and in time we'll be able to speak about it. Yes, in time we'll talk about it. So, Honourable Speaker, as you correctly said, this matter best be left where it is, and then the answer is that the matter is being looked into.
Well, we know the matter is very clearly being looked into. He said that at least 3 times. He said in time. I would argue that this is a fairly urgent matter. Surely the United States also has to put its foot down in a way, being so strong against what Russia is doing in Ukraine. For a country like South Africa that says it's neutral, to then have potentially given arms to that country, that is not a neutral move. What sort of consequences might follow? I know that we're in the realm of conjecture now, but obviously we think of things like the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which gives duty-free access to a lot of goods from South Africa and our region. Do you think we might see restrictions coming in that form?
It's possible. There is some political headwinds blowing in the U.S. Congress on this issue, but it's still early innings. And what is significant is that the intelligence seems to have revealed that, and I know that there's skepticism on the part of our branch of the ANC about how can Russia, which has so many arms, need South African weapons. But don't forget that the expenditure of weapons on both sides in the Ukraine war has been horrific, and the Russians are perpetrating a horrific invasion that is causing enormous suffering of the Ukrainians. So the Americans are drawing a line in the sand, in a sense, and that's what the Brigady was doing today. The consequences of which we're going to have to see play out in the weeks ahead.
Bearing in mind that the United States often, if it acts when it draws a line in the sand, other countries tend to follow suit. Could we see this becoming something that draws in other countries against us? I'm thinking of the United Kingdom that stands very much as one with the United States over the Ukraine war. Could this lead to us essentially having to pick a side and being isolated?
Well, so far, you know, the Western powers have segregated the issue and given South Africa and the other members of Africa that have voted to abstain, not to vote for Russia, but to vote abstentions, a pass. It is certainly the case that the Security Council could not deal with this because the Russians have a veto, and they were, in fact, the chair when the invasion occurred, which is a good reason to reform the Security Council, by the way. And it's a good reason that the West is taking such a hard line on what was a traditional African position of territorial integrity and sovereign equality. So this is a good moment to reassess how South Africa thinks about its role in Africa. But on the other hand, the consequences of these decisions taken that seem to suggest that South Africa is not, in fact, non-aligned, but supporting Russia is troubling, and it's troubling to a lot of people in the Biden administration. It wouldn't be troubling to the Trump administration, of course, and he may well get reelected in 2024. And then you'd have South Africa, Trump, Putin cabal, I guess.
Well, thank you for giving me a laugh on what is actually a fairly troubling day. I really do appreciate your time with us this evening. John Stremlau, Honorary Professor in International Relations at Wits University. We've got plenty more on the story during the course of the program, but up next